Marcus Webb was 12 years old, and he had always been the kind of boy who asked too many questions and went too many places he was not supposed to go. On this particular afternoon, with the twin suns of Kepler 452b hanging low in the orange sky, he found himself crawling beneath a massive sheet of twisted metal in the old mining sector that everyone said was dangerous and off-limits. The sector had been abandoned for nearly 10 years. It was full of broken machines, shattered windows, and the remains of buildings that had collapsed long ago. Marcus knew he should not be here. His parents had told him many times to stay away from this place. The colonial authorities had put up warning signs and barrier fences. But Marcus had always been curious, and curiosity had a way of making him forget about rules and danger and common sense. He was looking for old technology parts that he could take apart and rebuild into something new. He did this sometimes when he was bored, and today he was very bored. His sister Emma was away studying on an orbital station far above the planet. His friends were busy with their families. And so Marcus had decided to explore the ruins where nobody else ever went. As he crawled under the metal sheet, something caught the afternoon light and reflected it back at him like a mirror. Marcus stopped and looked closer. At first, he thought it was just a piece of broken technology, perhaps some old computer part or a reflective panel from some machine. But then the object moved. Just slightly. Just enough to make Marcus's breath catch in his throat. It was not technology at all. It was a living thing. Marcus slowly backed out from under the metal and stood up, his heart beating faster. He approached the spot more carefully this time, moving slowly and deliberately. When he knelt down and peered into the shadows, he saw it clearly. It was an alien. A real alien. A creature made of what looked like clear crystal or glass, about the size of a small cat or a large rabbit. The creature's body was vaguely shaped like a human body, with 2 arms and 2 legs and a head, but everything about it was different and strange and beautiful in a way that Marcus had no words to describe. The alien's skin glowed with a faint blue light, but the light was very dim, almost dying. According to the pictures Marcus had seen in school, Zelthians were supposed to have bright, shining skin that glowed with azure blue. But this creature's light was so weak that it looked almost colorless, like a candle that was running out of wax. The alien was also very still. Too still. Marcus wondered if it was already dead, if what he was looking at was just the body of a creature that had somehow ended up in these ruins and died here alone. But then the alien's sensory organs, which looked like delicate antennae made of crystal, trembled slightly. The creature was alive. Barely alive, but alive. Marcus remembered the news broadcast from 3 weeks ago. A Zelthian colony ship had crashed into a field of asteroids while traveling through space. There had been an evacuation. Many of the aliens had died. The survivors had been rescued by their own ships and taken away. The incident had been big news for a few days, and then everyone had moved on to other things. That was how it always was. News happened, people talked about it, and then they forgot about it and thought about something else. But someone had not been rescued. Someone had been left behind in the chaos and confusion. That someone was now lying in the dust of these old ruins, slowly starving to death. Marcus felt something change inside his chest. He did not fully understand the feeling, but it felt important. It felt like something that mattered. He had never seen a living alien before, never been this close to something so completely different from himself. And he could see that the creature was suffering. Marcus pulled his emergency ration pack from his satchel. Inside were 3 nutrient bars that his mother had given him that morning. They were designed to keep humans alive if they ever got lost or hurt and could not get regular food. Marcus had eaten one of them for lunch. He had 2 left. He broke one of the remaining bars in half and held it out toward the alien creature. He did not know if Zelthians could eat human food. He did not know if what he was doing would help or hurt. But he knew that the creature was hungry. He could see it in the way the alien's body was shaped, too thin and fragile, like something that was slowly fading away. "Hey," Marcus whispered, keeping his voice soft and gentle so as not to frighten the creature. "It is okay. I am not going to hurt you." The alien's large eyes, which were made up of many small facets like an insect's eyes, opened wider. The creature looked at Marcus for a long moment. Marcus could see fear in those eyes. He could also see something else. He could see hope. It was small and fragile, like a tiny flame that might blow out at any moment, but it was there. Marcus held the piece of nutrient bar a little closer. "You can have my food," he whispered. "You can have all of it if you want." The alien creature moved very slowly, as if even movement took almost all of its energy. It reached out one thin crystalline arm and took the food from Marcus's hand. The creature was trembling, Marcus noticed. It was trembling with hunger and fear and exhaustion. The alien ate the half bar slowly, taking small bites, as if it was afraid that the food might disappear or that it might make the creature sick. Marcus watched quietly. He did not move. He did not speak. He just watched and waited. When the food was gone, the alien looked at Marcus again. For just a moment, the glow beneath the creature's crystal skin seemed a tiny bit brighter. It was like watching a dying light bulb suddenly get a little bit more electricity flowing through it. "I will come back tomorrow," Marcus promised, even though he knew the alien could not understand his words. "I promise I will come back and bring you more food. You're going to be okay. I am going to help you." Marcus left the ruins as the sun set over the colony, painting the sky in shades of deep orange and purple and pink. Behind him, in the shadows of fallen metal and forgotten places, a small alien child waited and hoped and tried to believe that the kind human would keep his word and return. Marcus Webb returned to the ruins the very next day, just as he had promised. He brought 2 nutrient bars with him, which meant he would have very little food for himself. But that did not matter to him anymore. Nothing mattered except making sure the alien creature stayed alive. The small Zelthian was exactly where Marcus had left it, curled up in a tight ball beneath the collapsed metal sheet. But when Marcus approached, the creature's sensory organs lifted slightly, as if the alien had been listening and waiting for him to come back. That small movement made Marcus smile. It meant the creature had hope. It meant the creature believed Marcus would return. "I brought food," Marcus said softly, sitting down beside the alien and breaking one of the nutrient bars into small pieces. "Eat slowly, okay? Do not eat too fast or it might make you sick." The alien ate the food even more slowly this time, taking tiny bites and waiting between each bite. When it was finished, the creature's skin glowed a little bit brighter than it had the day before. Marcus could see a faint hint of blue color returning to the crystal body, like someone gradually turning up the brightness on a light that had been dimmed very low. This became Marcus's routine. Every day after school he would make an excuse to his parents about why he was going out. He would say he was studying with friends or exploring the colony or working on a school project. His parents were busy with their own work and trusted him, so they did not ask too many questions. And every day Marcus would go to the ruins and bring food to the alien creature. The Zelthian grew stronger with each passing week. By the second week, the creature could move around the small shelter that Marcus had built from scrap metal and old boards. By the third week, the alien's skin had become a pale but definitely blue color, and the sensory organs stood upright instead of hanging limp like dead flowers. Marcus decided to give the creature a name. He called it ZYX, taking the name from the soft chiming sounds the alien made when it was content. ZYX seemed to like having a name. The creature would make the sound whenever Marcus arrived, as if greeting an old friend. Communication between Marcus and ZYX was difficult at first. ZYX could not speak human words, and Marcus certainly could not produce the strange harmonic frequencies and musical tones that Zelthians used to communicate with each other. But they found other ways to understand each other. Marcus began drawing pictures in the dust on the floor of their shelter. He drew simple stick figures and basic shapes. He drew a picture of the sun and stars. He drew a picture of food and water. ZYX watched these pictures with great interest, and soon the alien began making its own drawings. The creature used its crystalline fingers to create intricate patterns and designs in the dust. These patterns seemed to mean something. They seemed to be a form of language that went beyond words. Then, slowly and gradually, something remarkable began to happen. ZYX started to understand human language. The alien would listen carefully as Marcus talked, and slowly the creature began to make sounds that were closer and closer to human words. At first, the sounds were strange and did not quite match the words Marcus was speaking. But week by week, ZYX's pronunciation improved. By the fourth week, ZYX could produce rough approximations of human words. The alien's voice sounded like wind chimes or crystal bells ringing together, but the words were there. "Marcus," ZYX said one afternoon, saying Marcus's name with careful precision. "Food. Say, thank. Marcus felt happy tears come to his eyes. ZYX had called him by his name. ZYX understood that Marcus was keeping him safe. ZYX understood that Marcus was helping him survive. Marcus began teaching ZYX about Earth and about humanity. He told stories about the first humans who had come to Kepler 452b to build the colony. He talked about his family and his sister Emma, who was studying to be an engineer. He talked about his dreams and his hopes for the future. And ZYX listened to everything, absorbing the words and the meanings like a plant absorbing water and sunlight. In return, ZYX shared memories with Marcus. The alien communicated these memories partly through words and partly through those beautiful patterns drawn in the dust and through hand gestures and through the changing colors of its crystal skin. Marcus learned about ZYX's family members, though their names were too complex for him to pronounce correctly. He learned about the Zelthian colony ship and what life was like for ZYX's people in space. He learned about the terrible moment when the ship had collided with the asteroids and how ZYX had become separated from its family during the evacuation. ZYX had been alone in the dark of those ruins for 3 weeks before Marcus found it. 3 weeks of hunger and fear and the terrible knowledge that rescue was not coming. 3 weeks of slowly fading away, waiting to die. But Marcus had changed all of that. Marcus had come, and Marcus had seen a being in need, and Marcus had chosen to help. That simple choice had saved ZYX's life. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. This was not just the relationship between a rescuer and a rescued creature. This was real friendship. This was something that went deeper than species and biology and everything that was supposed to divide them. ZYX would rest its crystalline head against Marcus's shoulder in the evenings as the sun set over the colony. Marcus would put his arm around his alien friend and feel completely at peace. But as the weeks passed and Marcus grew thinner and thinner from giving away his food rations, his mother began to notice. She would study him during meals with worried eyes. She would comment that he looked pale and tired. She would ask him if he was feeling sick. Marcus would lie and tell her he was fine. He would say that he was just growing and that Dr. Harrison had told him he would have a growth spurt. His mother seemed to accept this explanation, but Marcus could see the worry in her eyes. He knew that eventually, someone would demand real answers about where his food was going and why he was losing so much weight. But Marcus did not care. ZYX mattered more than anything else. ZYX mattered more than his own comfort and safety and health. And so Marcus continued to share his food with his alien friend, and the bond between them continued to grow stronger every single day. The security drone was small and silver, about the size of a bird, designed to fly through the air and scan the abandoned sectors of the colony for structural problems and environmental hazards. It had sensors that could detect heat, movement, and dangerous chemicals. It had cameras that could see in the dark. It was one of many drones that patrolled the ruins every single day, checking for dangers that might affect the safety of the colony. But the drones were not supposed to detect living creatures. Their sensors were calibrated to look for broken buildings and unstable metal and gas leaks. Living organisms were not supposed to show up on the drone's equipment at all. That was not what the drones were designed to do. On a Tuesday afternoon, however, the small security drone flew over the ruins where Marcus and ZYX had built their shelter. The drone's thermal imaging system, which detected heat, suddenly registered 2 distinct heat signatures in a structure that was supposed to be completely empty. The drone stopped flying and hovered in the air, its cameras focusing on the location below. The alert went to the Colonial Authority within minutes. Within an hour, military personnel were being dispatched to investigate. Within 2 hours, 5 soldiers in full tactical gear and helmets were surrounding the ruins, their weapons drawn, their radios crackling with orders and updates. Marcus was in the middle of teaching ZYX a simple human song that his sister Emma had taught him many years ago when he heard the sound of boots on metal and the voices of soldiers shouting orders. His heart stopped. Everything went cold inside his chest. This was the moment he had been dreading for the past month. This was the moment when everything would end. ZYX's sensory organs immediately flattened against its crystalline head in a gesture of extreme fear. The alien skin began to flash with colors of panic and alarm. The small creature made a sound like frightened wind chimes, high-pitched and desperate. "Hide," Marcus whispered urgently, his own voice shaking. "Behind the metal panels. Do not make any sound. Stay very still. Okay." But it was already too late. The drone had already recorded them. The soldiers had already seen the thermal images. There was no hiding anymore. There was no running away. There was only what came next. Marcus heard a soldier's voice boom through an external speaker. "Unidentified civilians in the restricted sector. Exit the structure immediately with your hands raised. This is your only warning." Marcus slowly stood up and walked out of the shelter into the late afternoon sunlight. He raised his hands high above his head, showing the soldiers that he was not a threat and that he was not carrying any weapons. His heart was pounding so hard that he thought it might break through his ribs. 5 soldiers surrounded him, their weapons pointed directly at him. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets, so Marcus could not see their expressions. But he could hear the tension in their voices. "Stand down, civilian," one of the soldiers said, the voice of a woman. "You are in a restricted zone. This sector is off limits to all unauthorized personnel. Explain your presence immediately." "My friend is hurt," Marcus said quickly, the lie coming fast because he was terrified and desperate. "I was just helping my friend who got hurt. Please do not shoot." "We have thermal signatures reading 2 entities in that structure," the female soldier said. Produce the second entity. No. This is not a request. Marcus's mind raced. He could not give ZYX up. He could not let them take his friend away to some laboratory where scientists would study the alien like it was just an experiment. He could not let them put ZYX in a containment cell. He could not let them hurt his friend. Without thinking about what he was doing or what might happen, Marcus turned and ran back toward the shelter. The soldiers shouted warnings, but Marcus ignored them. He ran as fast as his legs could carry him, threw aside the metal panels that he had carefully arranged, and positioned himself directly in front of ZYX, using his own body as a shield between his friend and the weapons of the soldiers. "You cannot have him," Marcus said, his voice shaking with emotion and determination and fear. His hands were spread wide, protecting ZYX. "He is not a threat. He is just a child. He was abandoned here. I have been helping him survive. If you are going to take him, you have to go through me first." The soldiers hesitated. This was not a situation that their military training had prepared them for. This was not a security threat or an invasion or a hostile alien. This was a human child, deliberately putting himself in danger to protect an alien life form. This was something that did not fit into any of their standard operating procedures. "Stand down, Marcus Webb," a new voice said. This voice was different from the others. It was older and calmer and carried the weight of authority. "I am Commander Helena Torres. I would like to talk to you. Nobody is going to hurt your friend. Just listen to me. Okay?" Commander Torres emerged from behind the soldiers. She was older than the soldiers, perhaps 60 years old, with gray streaks in her dark hair. Her face showed the lines of someone who had made many difficult decisions in her life. She was not carrying a weapon. Her hands were visible and empty. Torres approached Marcus slowly, moving with deliberate calmness. She stopped a few meters away and knelt down so that her eyes were at the same level as Marcus's eyes. "My name is Helena Torres," she said again, speaking slowly and carefully. "I am the commander of the colonial military force. I have been doing this job for many years. I have learned that sometimes the most important things in life are not about rules or procedures or military protocols. Sometimes the most important things are about compassion and kindness and doing what is right in your heart. What you have done here, Marcus, protecting your friend like this, that is something important. That is something that matters. Can you tell me what happened? Will you tell me your story?" Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. He told Commander Torres everything. He told her about finding ZYX dying in the ruins. He told her about sharing his food and teaching the alien to speak. He told her about the friendship that had grown between them. He told her that he could not let ZYX be taken away. Torres listened to every word without interrupting. When Marcus finished speaking, she stood up and turned to her soldiers. "Lower your weapons," she commanded. "Ma'am?" one of the soldiers questioned. "Lower your weapons," Torres repeated, her voice firm and leaving no room for argument. "This is not a hostile situation. This is a humanitarian situation. I am taking command of this operation. Nobody fires. Nobody moves. Nobody does anything without my direct order. Is that understood?" "Yes, ma'am," the soldiers responded. Torres turned back to Marcus and smiled. "Your friend is going to be okay," she said. "I promise you that." Commander Helena Torres made a decision that would change everything. She ordered her soldiers to secure the perimeter around the ruins, but not to interfere with Marcus or ZYX. Then she activated the long-range communication system on her military transport vehicle and began the process of contacting the Zelthian Council across the vast distances of space. Communication between human colonies and Zelthian settlements was not simple. Messages had to be transmitted through relay stations that orbited between the two civilizations. The distance was so great that it took time for signals to travel back and forth. But Torres was patient, and she understood the importance of what she was doing. For the first 2 hours, she spoke with lower-level Zelthian officials who wanted to know why a human military commander was trying to establish contact with the Council. Torres explained as clearly as she could that there had been a discovery related to the colony ship accident from 3 weeks ago. This statement alone caused the Zelthian officials to become very interested very quickly. Within 4 hours, Torres was speaking directly with the lead representative of the Zelthian Council, a being whose name translated roughly as Counselor Amara. The Zelthian's face appeared on the communication screen, his crystalline features showing complex patterns of color and light that seemed to express emotion. Torres explained everything to the counselor. She told him about the abandoned Zelthian child that had been left behind in the colony ruins. She told him about the condition the creature had been in when discovered. She told him about Marcus Webb, a human boy who had risked his own health and safety to keep the alien child alive. She told him about the friendship that had formed between them. There was a long silence on the other end of the communication line. Taurus could see the counselor's crystalline skin pulsing with different colors, patterns that suggested shock and disbelief and something that might have been grief. "We believed all our young were lost," Counselor Amara said finally, his voice carrying emotions that needed no translation. "We have mourned those who perished in the accident. We have searched the debris fields and the space around the collision site. But one small child, separated from the evacuation, lost in the ruins of your colony, we did not hope to find survivors. We believed everyone was gone." "There is more, Counselor," Taurus said. "The human child who saved your young one did so knowing it might cost him. He gave away his own food rations to keep your child alive. He risked discovery. He risked punishment. He risked everything. Not because anyone ordered him to. Not because his leaders commanded it. He did it because he recognized suffering and chose to act with compassion." Another long silence. Taurus could see the Zelthian skin cycling through colors more rapidly now, patterns that suggested profound emotion and inner struggle. "This is unusual," Counselor Amara said slowly. "Your species and mine have maintained cautious distance from each other. We have been careful. We have been cautious about interaction. But what you are describing, this action of your young human, this defies all our assumptions about your kind. This suggests a capacity for compassion that we did not expect to find." Taurus leaned forward. "What do you want to do, Counselor? We have the child here. The child is healthy now. We can arrange for your recovery team to retrieve the young one. But I wanted to speak with you first. I wanted you to know the full story before we proceed." The counselor was quiet for a very long time. When he spoke again, his voice carried a new kind of authority and formality. "We request that you permit us to send a recovery vessel to your colony. We wish to retrieve our young one. But we also wish to express our gratitude to the human child Marcus Webb. In our culture, when someone saves the life of one of our young, that person is honored in ways that go very deep. We would like to extend that honor to your species through this child. And Commander Torres, we request your counsel. What would be a meaningful way to acknowledge what has occurred here?" Torres smiled. "I believe I have an idea, Counselor." Within a week, a Zelthian recovery vessel appeared in orbit above Kepler 452b. It was a beautiful ship, constructed from crystalline materials that seemed to shift colors in the light from the planet's sun. The vessel descended slowly and carefully, and when it landed near the colonial settlement, a delegation of adult Zelthians emerged. These were not small creatures like ZYX. These were adult Zelthians, larger and more radiant, their crystalline skin brilliant with blue and violet light. Their sensory organs were adorned with what appeared to be ceremonial markings and adornments. They moved with grace and purpose, and when they approached Commander Torres and Marcus, there was an air of formal ceremony about them. ZYX recognized them immediately. The small alien made joyful sounds, chiming and singing with pure happiness. The creature ran toward the adult Zelthians with energy and excitement, ready to return to its own kind, ready to go home. But then ZYX stopped. The creature turned back and looked at Marcus, and for a moment, the joy seemed to pause and shift into something more complicated. ZYX returned to Marcus and wrapped its crystalline arms around the human boy, a gesture of embrace that no one had taught the small alien. It was pure instinct, pure emotion, a physical expression of gratitude and love that transcended all species boundaries. The lead Zelthian, Counselor Amara, approached Marcus with formal ceremony. The counselor bowed, a gesture that shocked many of the human observers who had gathered to witness this moment. No Zelthian had ever bowed to a human before. "You have given us back our future," Counselor Amara said, his voice strong and clear. "Our colony has suffered great loss in the accident. Many did not survive. The young one you have saved would have perished without your intervention. But you chose differently. You chose compassion over fear. You chose to see another being in need and to act. This changes how we understand your species. This changes everything." The counselor then announced a proposal that came directly from the Zelthian Council. A cultural exchange program would be established. Human families and Zelthian families would live together in a new settlement designed as a symbol of cooperation. Young people from both species would study each other's cultures, sciences, histories, and arts. Educational resources would be shared freely. Trade would be opened. And the friendship between Marcus and ZYX would be preserved and honored as the foundation upon which this new relationship would be built. Marcus's parents stood watching, tears streaming down their faces. His mother placed her hand on his shoulder. "I am so proud of you," she whispered. "I am so very proud of who you are." 9 months had passed since that day in the ruins when Marcus had whispered, "You can have my food." 9 months of building something new, something that had never existed before in human history. The joint settlement on Kepler 452b was called Unity, and it had become a place where two completely different species were learning to live together and to understand each other. The settlement itself was a marvel of combined architecture. Human engineers and Zelthian builders had worked side by side, creating structures that blended both forms of design. There were buildings made from traditional human materials like metal and concrete, but they stood next to towering spires of crystalline Zelthian construction. Gardens had been planted where human and Zelthian plants grew together, creating colors and patterns that neither species could have created alone. At the center of the settlement was a plaza where both species gathered. This was where the real magic happened every single day. Human children and Zelthian youth played together, learning each other's games and sports. Human teachers worked alongside Zelthian educators in schools where both young people studied mathematics, science, history, and art together. In the research facilities, human scientists collaborated with Zelthian researchers on technological advancement and medical discoveries. And at the heart of it all was the friendship between Marcus Webb and the small alien called ZYX. Marcus stood on an observation platform that overlooked the central plaza, watching the younger children play below. He was 13 now, taller than he had been 9 months ago, stronger too. The weight he had lost from sharing his food had returned and then some. He had grown 1.5 inches in the past 9 months, which his mother said was the growth spurt that Dr. Harrison had predicted. ZYX was among the playing children, though the small alien had grown somewhat as well. Zelthians grew much more slowly than humans, so ZYX was still small compared to adult Zelthians. But the change in the creature was remarkable. Where once ZYX's crystalline skin had been pale and nearly colorless, it now shone with vibrant azure blue, with traces of violet that indicated contentment and joy. ZYX noticed Marcus watching from the observation platform and immediately broke away from the group of playing children. The small alien raced across the plaza with incredible speed, climbing the stairs to the platform 2 at a time, and leaping into Marcus's arms with unbridled enthusiasm. "Happy day," ZYX said in accented human speech that had improved dramatically over the 9 months. The alien's words were clearer now, more precise, though the voice still sounded like crystal bells chiming together. "Play with friends. Learn together. Good. Very good." Marcus laughed and set his friend down, but kept an arm around the small alien's shoulder. "Yeah," he agreed. "Really good. The best." Emma Webb had returned from the orbital station to see the settlement for herself. She stood beside her brother now, watching the children play and marveling at the impossible reality that had emerged from Marcus's simple act of kindness. Emma was 17 years old and brilliant, studying to become an engineer, and even she was amazed by what her younger brother had helped create. "They are calling you a hero," Emma said, speaking softly so that only Marcus could hear. "Did you know? Back at the main colony, there are people saying you should receive the Colonial Medal of Achievement. You are 13 years old, Marcus, and you have fundamentally changed human and Zelthian relations. You have given both our species a future that nobody thought was possible." Marcus felt uncomfortable with the attention. He had never wanted to be famous or to be called a hero. He had just done what seemed right at the moment. "I just shared my food," he said quietly. "That is all I did. Anyone could have done it." "No," Emma said firmly. "Not anyone. You did it. You saw another being in need and you chose compassion over fear. You risked everything. You risked your health, your safety, your relationship with your parents. You risked punishment and isolation and all the uncertainty that came with protecting something so completely different from yourself. That is what heroes actually do, Marcus. That is what it really means to be a hero. It means doing what is right even when it is hard and scary and goes against all the rules." The settlement continued to grow and develop. New buildings were constructed. Trade routes were established between the Zelthian territories and human colonies. Scientists from both species worked together on problems that neither species could solve alone. Medical facilities were created where Zelthian doctors learned human anatomy and human doctors learned about Zelthian physiology. Cultural festivals were held regularly, where both species shared music and art and food and stories. A school had been established specifically for young people from both species. It was called the Unity Academy, and it was becoming famous across all human colonies and Zelthian settlements. Young humans learned about Zelthian culture and language. Young Zelthians learned about human history and society. And most importantly, they learned that beings who were completely different could still be friends, could still work together, could still care about each other. Marcus's story became famous in both cultures. In human schools, children learned about the boy who had shared his food with an abandoned alien. In Zelthian settlements, young people learned about the human child who had shown compassion when it would have been easier to show fear. The story was told in different ways in different places, but the core of it remained the same. It was a story about kindness. It was a story about courage. It was a story about what happened when one person chose to see another's suffering and decided to do something about it. Years later, historians would look back at this period and identify it as a turning point in human history. Not because of military victories or political treaties or technological breakthroughs, though those things happened too. The real turning point had been a simple, profound choice made by a 12-year-old boy in a forgotten sector of ruins. Humanity had proven itself capable of seeing the suffering of another being and responding with compassion instead of weapons. They had proven that they could extend genuine kindness to someone who was completely alien, completely other. And in proving that, they had opened a door to a future that nobody could have imagined before. Marcus watched the sunset paint the sky of Kepler 452b in shades of gold and crimson and deep purple. Zeux's crystalline form glowed gently at his side, casting small patterns of light onto the ground. Both the human boy and the alien child stood together, watching the stars begin to appear as the daylight faded. Somewhere in the distances between worlds and between stars, the future was being written. And it had all begun with an act of simple, ordinary human kindness. It had begun with a boy willing to share his food. It had begun with the choice to see another being's hunger and to answer it with compassion.